Welcome, everybody. We are live. We have with us today again Paul from FreightConnect.com. Thanks for coming in, Paul.
Thank you for having me, man.
Oh, this is exciting. We've just spent the last 25 minutes putting on a really good show for y'all, but we weren't live. I think we had the best conversations before I hit that live button, so we're gonna have to try
Yeah.
to recreate all that for everybody.
Mm.
Today, Paul always comes on, graces us with his presence. We're grateful for that. Talking about freight, direct shipper freight, the freight markets, the future of freight, the history of freight, everything about freight. Today, I thought we'd do something a little bit different because Paul has helped me a great deal just in business in general, just by the conversations we have, the things I learned from him just by listening to what he says and watching what he does. So today we're going to talk about that kind of uh, business in general, mostly related to trucking because that's what we do.
Mm.
But and then both of us have conversations with people in the industry. Paul talks to a lot of people that call in about his services, the drivers, and talks a lot to customers. So we're going to bring a lot of different perspectives here, and we're going to point out hopefully some shortcomings and some things that we need to change. We all need to change. I need to change. Everybody going forward to be successful in this industry because I feel like a lot of things are being missed. Is
Mm.
that a fair statement, Paul?
Yeah, I would say.
And trucking is changing. The future of trucking is changing, and we're gonna have to keep up to that. So that's what we're gonna talk about today. Where do we
Mm.
start? Where do we start? Let's talk about the first thing to talk about. Let's go back to we were just talking about 2021
Mm.
a little bit earlier,
Mm.
and the difference in the conversations you're having with shippers and people back then versus today,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Yeah.
what truckers were doing back then versus what they're doing today, and some opportunities that were missed along the way that I think really just right over everybody's head. And you were just going back and watching some of our older videos and we were talking about it and you're like, we were exactly right. It's like you said it's like I turned on the TV this morning and what we were saying would be on the news today.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Wow.
talking about conversations with some of your shippers
Yeah.
back then versus now, what are some of the differences?
Yeah, man. Hey, always good to be on with you, man. So appreciate it
Thanks for doing
for
it.
this. Yeah, and taking the time. So yeah, so back in 2000, let's see, we go to 2001, and it's funny. Let's see, I think it was 2000. Was it last year? Yeah, I think it was a video that I watched. It was last year, I'll say. But at any rate, you had mentioned that we had planned to be on that 1 month, but we had to skip because you caught COVID, then I caught COVID,
Hmm.
and I'm hearing people, people today still catch it, but back in 2020, 2020, I mean, it was a beast, right? And it just caused havoc around the world. So with that, anyone that you talk to, it was a topic. But if we all remember as well, you turn on the news, not only was COVID a topic, the trucking industry was a topic, right?
Yeah.
Transportation was a topic, ocean, the ports, all that stuff was a topic. And the delays was a topic, people were not getting their stuff. It was taking months, there were orders being put in to purchase trucks, right?
Yeah.
And those orders couldn't be filled. There weren't enough employees to on the manufacturing line to put these trucks together, right? Chips, there was a shortage of chips,
Yeah.
there was so many things that were going on, and it was a thing of we just had to figure it out, right? And in all that chaos, there was a lot of opportunity, and
Right.
it was a lot of opportunity that came for even with the bare shelves, when there weren't items on the shelves, it's because there were no one could deliver it. There weren't enough trucks to deliver it. So we
Or
had this
or unload the truck, and if they could unload it, to put the stuff on the shelves.
yeah, and there were people were not around, and it was because of COVID. People were scared. People were in the house. We had China, shut down and things like that was going on. So we had a situation of this imbalance, right? There was, I mean, tons of demand, right? But we just didn't have the equipment, we didn't have the labor. I mean, there was just a lot of shortages. And so, anyway, with all that going on, 2021, money was there to be made. I mean, there were tons of people that came into our industry, got a truck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And truck prices went up, the price of everything. We had inflation, right? Inflation went up.
We nailed that spot on too. If you go back and watch that.
Yes. There's, I mean, there was some low-hanging fruit that we called, but then there was some other things, and when you talk about longer down the road effects and what have you, we did our research, looked back on history, and brought it all to the table in the sense that this shouldn't surprise us, these things that are going on, but you just put the information out there, and people do what they want to do with it. But at any rate, so we get to 2021, people are making a gang load of money in our industry, right? Someone had to pay it, and shippers had to pay it. And when I say shippers, I'm talking about businesses, right? They had to pay it. If they wanted their clients to keep their customers, they had to put out, the inventory. They had to figure out how to get it. Instead of spending $1,000 on a container coming from China, it went up to $20,000 for a container.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, some businesses went out of business, and that didn't even guarantee that you were going to get it on time, right?
Yeah.
But all this stuff was going on, so we made a lot of money. We called our shot. I mean, we called, our price, and we got it. $10 a mile, $6, whatever it was. Fuel wasn't crazy, like it had, how it came to be. But going into 2022, we had talked about it. And one of the things we talked about was, you know what, this is going to slow down at some point in time. And we were talking somewhere around February, March. I mean, there's even in a newsletter, you can go back, look at the newsletter, and we talked exactly that, and it happened. It wasn't because of the war, but the
Right.
war played a part, but it wasn't because of the war. It was, it was the natural progression of things. And, you just look at some things, you can identify what was going to happen. And so it happened. And so looking back on the video I was watching, and this was July 24th of 2022, our video. And it's like, man, this stuff is like spot on, stuff that we're talking about. And it was very interesting. I enjoyed listening to it. I don't necessarily go back and, watch this. I mean, it's weird for me to watch myself, but I was really enjoying it. I was listening to it, and I was like, man, this is really interesting to hear this stuff. So my point in that is this: when we're in the moment, right? Sometimes we can get caught up in the moment, right?
Right.
And unfortunately not see beyond, beyond our nose,
The biggest opportunity of a lifetime was missed. People were focused on the money and not the opportunity. Most people screwed that one up bad. You had a chance to be set for the rest of your life in this business, or at least the next how many years, and people couldn't see past the money. Right?
And you know what, with that too, there are people out there in our industry, not in our industry, they knew how to play the market, and they were able to make a lot of money. You know what I mean? There's people that saw the opportunity, right? There's opportunity, and were able to make a lot of money. In our industry, here's the thing. Say where we're at today, there's a lot of people that got in our industry just to make the money, maybe didn't know how to operate a business, didn't really know all about trucking or whatever the case is. But what would have been the opportunity that existed at that time, right?
Ooh.
In terms of, hey, here we are. I can make a lot of money right now, but what do I do beyond that, right? What are some of the things that I can do to
I know.
Adam in the
I
front
know.
row?
The opportunity was to operate way above your level. So people needed trucks. People would talk to people. Um, you had the chance as a one truck owner or as a small, very small company to do business as you have never done it before, to get into customers directly, to make contacts everywhere and set it up so that still to this day, you could still be hauling freight for these people as a very, very small company.
Hmm.
That was the opportunity, is you could make $5 a mile for about 2 years, or, get yourself deeply entrenched somewhere and make a really good rate per mile for the next 20 years, or get into 5 different places, or whatever. That was the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity, is to seize a position for your business.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm eternally grateful to you for that, because you taught me that before we got I think we were talking pre-COVID, weren't we?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you
Yeah.
taught me that before
Yeah.
that happened. So it wasn't hard to recognize that opportunity when it came.
Mm. Yeah. That's an excellent point, man. I mean,
And because we
uh,
did that, we're
yeah.
still in a pretty, probably, I would say, better position than most right
Yeah.
now. Things
And
aren't
and
perfect. Things are
mm-hmm.
tough, but I feel like we're in a better position than most companies
Mm.
of my size.
Man, you said so many things. There's so many things that, I mean, you said what you said. It there's so many things that just filter through my mind, and I can't remember them all. But yeah. So one of the things is being able to develop those relationships, right? We talk about that all the time,
Hmm.
and we can talk about that in a bigger way, a deeper way. But just on the surface, you had the opportunity to. This is what I heard. I mean, the original question was, what have I been hearing, from there when dealing with shippers to today? What's the difference? Even just in communicating with carriers, right? Um, I would talk to him about direct shippers at that time, and you remember when you told me, Paul, man, carriers we can call our shot right now. So it's even with brokers, and it's tough to for probably carriers to think about the other opportunities, right? Because they can just call up, get the load, get their money, and move on. And that's what was going on. I was hearing that from a lot of carriers. They were like, "Hey, I'm good. I'm getting the freight. I'm making the money." And they were good, and they were going from one point to the other, to the other, to the other, but not setting themselves up for when this whole thing changes, right?
Hmm.
And when I say that, talking about what you're saying, build the relationship. How do you get in there and you have this opportunity that you've never had before? If you think about it, before it was like, well, how do I get into a ship, or how do I get this freight, or how do I do these things, right? How do I get these opportunities? The opportunity was right there. The COVID presented the opportunity, right? So it wasn't like you had to make cold calls, right? You could just call anyone up and they'll talk to you. And so, at any rate, building the relationships, looking down the road and saying, you know what, when this thing is all over, you could even say to the shipper, you know what, I know this isn't going to be this way forever, but this is what I'd love to do. I'd love to build a relationship where you show you how I operate and be able to help you out beyond.
Yeah.
They would have listened, whether they would have done it or not. You had an opportunity to do that with multiple shippers, right? You had an opportunity to do that with multiple shippers to set yourself up.
And not
When
all
we
of them are
go
going to work out. Not all of them are going to last.
right, they're not all going to work out. They're not all going to last. But at the same time, you get an opportunity to even learn some things, right? From the shipper, learn some shipper ways, learn some things, and you will build some relationships that will last, right? It's like going to college in school. I mean, it doesn't even have to be college. We go to school, might not want to be there, right? But we go to school, and then some people do. If you go to college, obviously you made a decision, a conscious decision to spend time in a classroom such as yours there, and
You're coming on today. I knew I was going to school.
so you decided consciously that I'm going to sit here in the front row and I'm going to learn and I'm going to study and I'm going to do these. This is what I'm going to do. You didn't do it for the moment, right? You might have even had to pay money to be in that class, right? But you did it for as an investment.
Well, for the long-term health of what I'm trying to achieve. It's like
Exactly.
it's a longer term thinking. I didn't really introduce you all the way for people that are new here. This is Paul. Paul is from a company called freightconnect.com, fr8connect.com. And Paul is not a trucking company. He's not a broker. Paul is like a consultant. Paul tries to help small trucking companies connect with direct shippers, direct customers, direct relationships. So he can train you how to do that for yourself, or he can assist you in doing it. So go to his website at freightconnect.com. But today we're just talking about more general business in general. I like to hold all the questions till the end, but I just want to thank you, Cash is King, for the super chat, and thank you, Sterling. Also, I appreciate it. And one comment here I want to address, because I get this all the time, and I'm not picking on you there, Georgia Patriot, but I think it's important to address. It says, here's my issue with thinking we could be in somewhere long term. I'm hearing of shippers canceling contracts to go with cheaper carriers. Your plan works if the shipper has integrity. Well, my position on that is, yeah, it absolutely happens. It happens all the time. But you telling me that doesn't happen in the spot market every single day? One broker have it next week another one has it for cheaper rate. They cut each other daily. And if you're talking to direct customers, you're working to ensure your long-term success. It might happen, but you might do business with them for 10 years. It's one more customer than you had yesterday. So the fact that something bad happens or could happen means we should never try. I don't agree with that. And I'm not picking on any Georgia Patriot. I'm talking about this question in general, because I see it all the time that, well, yeah, shippers, they're canceling contracts. They're going to, yeah, maybe once, twice a year, they'll reshop their bids.
Yeah.
With a broker, that happens every week sometimes. Some shippers will put their stuff out for bid every week, and you bid the lane. So it's about working to ensure the long-term success of your company. And it might happen, it might not. You might do business with them for a long time, and if it does, and you can come to a resolution. Maybe it's not that much that they want, and you can work out a new deal with them and say, hey, when is this next bid available for opportunity? If the need changes, can we adjust for that? And you go through these things, and it teaches you, okay, now I'm prepared to deal with the next customer I want to seek out. You're still in a better position than you were yesterday.
Oh yeah.
And there's a reason why the large trucking companies are mostly customer freight, because that's how you ensure long-term success. A company like JB Hunt could never exist solely on the spot market. It just couldn't happen. They have people to answer to, employees to worry about, payrolls to meet. They have to have some degree of consistency. And you largely get that with, it doesn't have to be the same lane for a customer every week. Maybe you take care of a customer's overflow. There's many different spaces when you're looking for direct freight. There's many different ways you can achieve that goal. So put a longer term perspective on it and say, what is more likely to ensure the success of my business for the next 5 years and 10 years rather than next week? Now, don't get me wrong, it's tough right now, so you got to worry about next week. But don't give up on that longer term perspective. Now, if you're just getting this for 2 years, looking to make as much money as you can and bail, well, that's different. But if you're intending to do this for any period of time, a longer term perspective is better for you.
Yeah, no, that's great.
And that's in any business. You wouldn't go if you had a fence building company, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't be out looking for somebody to go find you fences to build. You want your own customers. There's not a lot of businesses out there that say no to having their own customers.
No.
Right.
No.
So don't feel like it's impossible, or don't be afraid to do it. It's once you do it, you'll realize it's different. It's just different. And something we should talk about too is to change a little bit. Something you and I were talking about earlier is mindset and what people are ready for.
Yeah.
Okay. How many times do you take a call from somebody and say, Paul, I want to get need to get a direct shipper. I need some direct freight. And then they go down the list of all the things that they expect this shipper to do for them, or provide to them, or give to them, or do for them.
Yeah.
But then how many times do you get the question, okay, what are my responsibilities? What do I bring to the table?
Yeah.
When you're going from talking to a broker to talking to a shipper, it's a different conversation. Are you ready for it? What have you done to prepare for it? How have you educated yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, there is, God, man, I just had a whole show in my head
The good
on
news is,
things that
we're
you
doing one right now. So
yeah,
let's
so
have it.
I was trying to get my pen and paper here so I can jot down some notes because again I'll forget all this stuff. But bottom line is that, well, it says bottom line, but at this point there is if you think about it, because I still haven't answered your original question of what I've heard back then and
Oh
what I'm
yeah,
hearing
yeah.
today,
Let's
but
do
I'm
that.
still going. No, it's still all of this is involved in that answer what we're talking about because there is the cycle, right? There's the business cycle, there's the freight cycle, there's it's cyclical, right? So where are we at now? Like you said, it's not like it was before. It's tough right now, right? So we don't operate as if when COVID was here, and we don't have this shouldn't have the same expectations, right? And at the same time, we still should be thinking down the road through this cycle, right? How this thing all comes to, like the Fed is talking about we need to get to 2% inflation, and then it's like, all right, is the target rate going to change to 2.5 or 3%? Or, it, we're always needing to be thinking about down the road. We see what's going on now, but we're planning for down the road, right? And we have a target, we're trying to get to. So it's always that we're always working in that scheme of things. So with what you were talking about, mindset, all that stuff, when we were back in COVID, we called our shot, right? If we flip it and say, all right, I'm on the shipper side now, and I look at the carrier and I say, what should I take on the attitude that carriers have taken on before, and maybe today, and that carriers are just trying, or shippers are trying to take advantage, of me, of us. They only want to give $1 a mile, or they only want to give this, they only want to give that, So we have that attitude when we're dealing with shippers, or even brokers, right? Okay, and so it doesn't help develop a relationship or build a good relationship. It's always they're out to get me, right?
Hmm.
Again, if we flip it and then we say now we're the shipper, right? I'm the shipper, and it's during COVID. Well, now you're asking me for $5 a mile. Now you're asking me for $10 a mile. Should I take on the attitude as a shipper that, wow, these carriers are out to get me? You know, that's all they're trying to do is just make money, and they're just, you know what
Right.
I mean? Take on
Right.
that same attitude. Well, here's what I'll say. You asking me what have I heard? During that time period, I didn't hear that from shippers.
Okay.
What I heard from shippers was, um, hey, let's have a conversation because I do need help, right? And then they're like, you know what? Money wise, I understand. I mean, I only have so much money that I can spend on this, but I do understand it's tough out there. And I do understand there's not as many trucks out there. And I understand that, it costs more to ship now, you know. And so as far as that goes, they're not telling me you all are out there just trying to make all this money. They'll even say that they did used to say, there's some people out there, they're making a ton of money and blah, blah, but I get it, I get it, you know. And so we're able to have a conversation because they need to move their freight,
Right.
so they wanted to have a conversation. Now, if I did that same thing as a carrier when I'm working with a shipper, right? And say, okay, I understand why you're asking for $1 a mile, right? Or I understand why, you are looking to give the freight to a broker, or I understand why you are not necessarily giving it to me, or I understand why you are doing things like this, or why you're doing things like that. Can we say that, and truly be sincere about it from the standpoint of what if you want to have a successful trucking company, right? You have to understand it is about relationships.
Hmm. No,
You
I've
have to understand.
you've taught me that for sure. I very well understand that.
Yeah, it's about relationships. I mean, we're just talking about the shipper carrier relationship, but there's other relationships that are involved, and so but you have to be able to communicate with them and have conversations with them and understand, what they're dealing with, what they're going through. Not that it's a sad story, but I mean, from the standpoint of that, we can't blanket it and say all shippers are this way, right? That shippers are so bad to the point where there's no value in me trying to build a relationship, right? They're all this way, you know. I wouldn't say that. I would say there's some bad players out there, right? Or some that's just all about the
Yeah, there's
money or whatever
there's
the
going to
case. It
be.
exists
Yeah.
on both sides because it was proven during COVID where carriers, is it fair to say carriers are all about the money? I mean, it can go both ways, right? But again, if you're wanting to develop your company to grow it, right? For you to grow and things like that, you have to work to develop those relationships and work to understand the other side and come to some kind of um, you know
Mutual
um,
understanding.
mutual understanding,
So
right? And
it
mhm,
seems to me, let me see if I can put this together in my own head.
mhm. Yeah, yeah,
It seems to me that you're saying, um, for long-term success, right? If you're a
okay,
if you're a one-shot Johnny, that's different. If you're trying to build some long-term success, you can't change them. You can change you. You have to change you. You have to change your understanding, the conversations you have. If you can't put yourself as an exercise, right? In the other side's shoes, to understand their needs, their wants, their responsibilities, their their situation. You can never really understand the whole picture and come to terms on an agreement that can work for both of you. Because
win-win,
to
right?
come
Yeah.
at it with, oh, so these people are trying to get over on me, you're automatically, you're right off the bat, you're in an adversarial situation.
Mm,
And then they get their hackles up and they're adversarial back, right?
yeah, yeah,
You come into a situation of, okay, I understand what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. You're acknowledging their concerns and their thoughts. Um, it warms up the relationship, and it's something that we talked about earlier, is pride and ego, right?
geez.
And the difference between confidence and ego,
Mm,
right? And you're saying, I don't know how to explain the difference between confidence and ego, because you want to be confident, you need to have a chip on your shoulder, but there's a fine line between that and ego. And I think the difference is, if you're a confident person and somebody comes to you and presents an argument other than what you believe, and if you're confident and smart, you can say to yourself, you know what, this guy's right, and what he says is valuable. And if you're operating on pure ego, then your
mm,
defense comes up and say, "Pff, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm right." You know.
yeah,
Uh, so if you can approach these things, if you can let your ego down and your pride down, you can do some miraculous things. Like I've been working in a situation with a guy, another YouTuber here, and as a partnership, we dispatch somebody.
hmm,
He dispatches them one way, I dispatch them the other way, and we've been very successful at it because I think both of us are pretty knowledgeable and good at what we do. But when we work together, there's no ego involved. Like if he tells me something that this is what we need to do, and this is how, I listen to him, and he does the same in return to me. And what we're able to accomplish when we do that is just, it's great for the person that's involved.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
benefiting from it,
yeah,
and it really has put us both in a position of realizing, what the possibilities are and what we can do together.
yeah,
When Because you
yeah.
can never work as a team if one or the other person or both of you has your ego out there on your sleeve
Mm,
and pride.
mm-hmm,
Because something that they know is valuable, something that is valuable, and you
mm-hmm.
can't just reject each other's positions right off the bat,
Yeah,
or it'll never work. So when you're
that's
going to something that you teach people is, okay, when you're going to talk to a shipper or direct customer, it's a totally different conversation. It's nothing like talking to a broker. You in fact, you have to put that aside. If you bring any of that conversation with you to talk to a direct customer,
mm,
you've already hamstrung yourself. You've already
mm-hmm,
you've already just about guaranteed your failure.
mm.
because these people aren't stupid. They're in these positions. It's an important position in the company. Be a shipping manager. You're
Hmm.
responsible for a huge budget, and they're smart. They know the market
Yeah.
probably better than you do. And when you come at them from this perspective, they'll
Mm.
know within the first few things you say who you are and where you're coming from. And right off the bat, they're going to know who they're dealing with.
Adam, they've become educated through COVID. You know what I mean? I mean, they've become
Oh yeah.
more educated, and learned, and hopefully we have too. You see, and that's a part of the opportunity that exists or existed.
Hmm.
And so like even when you were talking about with the ego thing, I mean that transcends transcends into all other relationships. You know what I mean? I mean other parts of our lives. So it definitely is a thing where um when you're able to harness that, when you're really able to figure that out, you can use that in a lot of different parts of your business and different parts of your life, because ego shows up in a lot of in a lot of ways, unfortunately. Even for me, there's times where I need to put that in check, and when you do, and as I had mentioned to you before, I had taken a class earlier this year, and that was a big part of it. Is like, you got to get rid of that ego, and you have to I'm not going to get it all into it, but it was a really good class. And then just putting those things to practice, with whatever it is that you learn, putting it to practice is the biggest thing. That's the key. You know, um,
Yes.
if you're able to, like, say when COVID was happening, and then you were able to actually work to develop those relationships, you might have heard about it, but once you do it, that's what makes the difference, is actually doing what it is that you've learned. So you guys, with this partnership that you have in dispatching, putting your egos aside, putting it in check, you obviously have benefited from it. You had to put it into
Oh,
action.
and it allows us to have just great conversations, kind of like
Yeah,
you and I do.
I bet. Yeah, yeah.
Um, so it's most people are their own worst enemy. And
Mm,
hey, I lump myself in with this because I'm a truck driver too. But truck drivers were some of the worst at this, and we have to realize that, or we're not going to. I don't want to say exist going forward, but we're going to be marginalized and pushed aside. And
mhm,
if you don't want that for yourself, we have to really change and level up
mm,
this business part of it. Because one thing's for sure is things are changing in trucking.
mm,
We're gonna have competition from places we've never thought of 10 years ago with all the
mm,
different technologies with electric vehicles. At some point, whether it's 20 years from now, autonomy, 30 years, whatever. And it's just not even necessarily all autonomy in trucking. It's
mhm,
your yard spotters can be autonomous.
mhm.
I've seen
They are. Yeah.
autonomous warehouses where you're loaded by
Mhm,
robots.
mhm.
So
Oh
it's
yeah,
working its way into our industry, and
it's
we
there.
have
Right.
to find a way to operate with this. And
Mhm,
if our foolish pride keeps us from realizing we have to upgrade ourselves, we don't have a
mhm.
chance.
Mm. You had talked about when we were talking. Remember, you mentioned about efficiency, right? The efficiency of things, and it's with technology. Technology is amazing, man. I would never, I wouldn't be foolish enough to say that I don't like technology. I use it all the time. And but there's where it it can it can get overboard. It can go overboard. I mean, who knows where this AI thing is going to go. But again, when we think about it, there's a lot of areas that efficiency is key, in things that we do. You were talking about there's things out there where for the truck itself, different technology that can help in regards to your truck running it more efficient. There's where you can save some money, and we were talking back when you made a lot of money during COVID, you could have reinvested that money, back into your equipment or back into your business, even with training, right? Training and different things that would have allowed you to be at a better place today. And when I say today, I'm talking about after the COVID effect, you know? Um, so there's, when you talk about technology, when you talk about efficiency, um, those are some of the things that we should look at as being a benefit, of us being able to make a lot of money, versus just making a lot of money and, I'm not going to say take advantage of people, but, um, just look at the money aspect of it.
Hmm.
There's so much more that you can gain, in a situation like that. Um, and then to talk about how things have changed in terms of the conversation with people. Man, when I talked to shippers in 2022, and you can go back and look at the video, it was in July. I was saying that people don't don't have as much freight, that they're offering up, but they were really trying to make sure that they were stacked in the warehouse. They didn't want to be without freight. That was a fear, because of what happened during COVID. But they would talk to you about shipping. They would be like, oh yeah, let me get the decision maker. They would get on the phone and have conversations with you, even though they might not have had a need like they did in 2021. They would talk to you. Today, it's getting to pre-COVID, where now it's tougher to get them on the phone. And if you do, the conversation is a little different. And this is what I hear today that I didn't hear before, even before COVID. One, um, they have their own equipment. I know that there is a show that we had once where we talked about that. We talked about, um, uh, if a shipper is smart, they would buy their own trucking company, right? Or
Hmm.
they would get their own equipment. We talked about that in one of the shows. I'm finding a lot of shippers now, they have their own equipment and they're making the deliveries or what have you. I mean, they've got their own equipment. I mean, I hear that one shipper after another. Or I hear them say, and I also hear them say, we're customer routed. And I ask them, why is that? And they tell me, well, it was hard for us to find trucks, so we put it on our customers, so they have to find the trucks now, or, they've got it figured out. And it's like, oh, okay. So customer routed, that was not a word that they used before. It was a word that they learned, through COVID. And that's what a lot of companies have gone to. We want to put it on our customers. They've got to figure all that out. We don't want to deal with it, and that's what they learned during COVID. You see what I mean? So what happened was shippers didn't just get to a point where they were like, screw carriers. They knew they needed carriers, right? But they tried to figure out, how are we going to work through this process, right? How are we going to make this thing work? And they came up with the solutions they came up with. So today, and think about it. If you were a carrier and you were working with these shippers and moving freight for them, some of them, they now have to figure out how to move their own freight where they didn't have to before. But if you were working with them and trying to develop relationships, right, you might have been the one to be
Hmm.
moving that freight for them today.
So we missed that opportunity largely.
Some
Um,
did. I
Back
mean,
then,
some didn't, but
so
yes, yes.
they back then realized
Hmm.
we need to have some of our own equipment. They couldn't get it because of equipment shortages, but now the equipment's available and they're not missing the opportunity. They're, the opportunity is there now for them to get this equipment and get drivers because the market is soft. They're not missing the opportunities. They see all the opportunities.
Hmm.
So we have to change to recognize when these opportunities come along because we missed the boat,
Hmm.
honestly.
Hmm.
They're smart enough, they're not gonna. They're thinking 20 years down the line.
Hmm. Yeah.
We're not. We're
Mm-hmm.
not.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna have to.
We might think 20 years down the road, but we're thinking of it in a way of allowing ego to be in the way, you know? So we may think, give you an example, like we may be thinking about the autonomous trucks, or we may be thinking about AI, or we may be thinking about, whatever, how shippers are doing this and that or what have you, and how that will eliminate us, you know what I mean, down the road,
Hmm.
versus thinking about, like you had said earlier, how do I how does how what is this all about, and what role can I play in this? You know what I mean? How can I take advantage of this? You know what I'm saying? Just like COVID came around, it was self-evident of how you could benefit from that. This is a little harder, right? It's like things are changing, but it's not in an easy way where people are just throwing you money. But there's a reason for some of this change, and you got to figure out, okay, what part can I play in this? And the quicker you do that, right, then the faster you can position yourself ahead of everyone else, right? You can be ahead of everyone else in regards to taking advantage of the situation. There's some things that are going on that nobody has figured out, what it's going to look like in a year or two. But, you can be a part of it, learn, open up, let the ego go,
Yeah, come at it from
take
a
a
new
vacation,
perspective, because
a new
really,
perspective.
to sit here right now, and trust me, I understand this. I'm not making light of it or picking, but the market's tough.
Mm,
So
it is.
you got a lot of
It
people
is.
out there screaming, "Oh, brokers are screwing us. This person's screwing us. That person's screwing us. Taking advantage of us." Okay, well, say it's happening. Then what? You can't change them. You can't change them. You're not powerful enough to change the market. You can change yourself, your way of thinking, and you can come at this from a different perspective. Even if you want to keep up that mantra, which I'm not saying if it is or is not true. That's not the top of what I'm saying is, okay, say you want to hold on to that and believe it. What you need to do is say, okay, these people are taking advantage of me. This is screwing me, whatever. How do I find the opportunity within this, or create my own opportunity, or how do I learn to change how to operate inside of this to ensure my success? Everybody else is missing the boat here. They're just going to sit there and wait for somebody else to solve their problems and place and blame. How am I going to go out and solve my own problems and position myself so should the day come when things do turn around, I'm in a really good position, and I'm in
Mm-hmm.
a position to win big, and I'm not gonna miss that next opportunity, because
Mm-hmm.
now I've changed my way of thinking of, I'm gonna watch out for myself and not expect that OIDA is gonna do it, or Freight Waves is gonna do it, or anybody's gonna do this for me. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
start taking charge of my own destiny and future,
Mm-hmm.
and own it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I
that's
like that.
that's the position to come at this from, and if you know it's tough. It requires maybe some self realization and exploration. But
There's
I
a
was fortunate
Go
enough
ahead.
that I learned a lot of that from you.
Mm. Well, thank you for that. I was like listening to you, and I was taking some notes. So I don't know if I just took my own notes, notes from stuff I told you from the past. But the thing is that this stuff is what we're talking about is real. You know what I mean? This is
Well,
real
you
stuff.
you're gonna dodge this, and I get it because you're a humble man, and you're not prideful. But I'm gonna sit here for a second, and I'm gonna tell everybody, okay, Paul does not pay me to come on my show. Y'all know that by now. I've said it a million times. Uh, Paul is here because he's a good person. He wants to help people, because I asked him to come here, and Paul's an asset to this community and to this industry. One of the most underappreciated, underrecognized, underutilized assets out there. What Paul does is valuable beyond. I don't even know what your prices are. We've talked, and I've gone through your course. It doesn't matter, because I'll tell you what. Whatever money spent would have spent on your course or whatever, I got the privilege of going through it for free because I proofread it, and we tweaked it a little bit, help you with your help. It doesn't matter, because it's brought me millions of dollars in business over the next 10 years. If it costs me a couple $1,000 or a couple $100 or whatever it is, it doesn't matter, because it's been one of the biggest keys to my success. So I'm going to
Mm.
toot your own horn, since you won't.
Well, I'm gonna ask you this, and not necessarily toot my horn, but to because I'm curious, and this is I have an answer, but I want to hear from you. to confirm it or removing my ego so I can hear, really get the real answer. So with that, what is it that has helped you? What is it that maybe you do now that you didn't do before? What area has it?
Mm.
What is it that has this all brought to you to help you and what you're speaking of?
This is a long.
And
This could be a long answer. So, um, because I can't even think of all the things. So it's
yeah.
the biggest things are the things you didn't know you were teaching me. Okay, you knew you were
Mm,
teaching me about direct shipper freight and about relationships, but what you didn't know you were teaching me is that in this industry, like it's all over, just look all over YouTube, right? You people are watching, you know about YouTube trucking, right? How many people are telling you out there telling you you can't do something or you shouldn't do something or this is the way you should do something or these are all the reasons why you shouldn't do that. These are all the reasons why you can't do that. And through just listening to the conversations with you, you're telling me, hey, not only can you do this, here's exactly how you do it. Uh,
mm,
Forget about all that other stuff. Like you really truly do have to just forget about it. It's not. It's what got you to where you are, and I'm talking about me, right? I'm not talking about you guys.
hmm.
It's
Right,
what
right.
got you to, and you didn't say this, but this is what I hear from it when you
Mm,
tell me that's all what got you to where you are today, right? So let's not do that anymore. And then in the same conversation, you were like, hey, here's what we're gonna do. Here's how we're gonna do it. There was never any, okay, if this doesn't work, we'll do this. No, there's never just a thing of this isn't gonna work. It's just
mm,
here's what we're gonna do.
mm,
Here's how we're gonna do it. Here's why you should do it. And there's never any of that other part of you shouldn't, you can't, you won't, you're gonna look stupid. Somebody's gonna make fun of you. Somebody's gonna tell you no. Somebody's gonna this that.
mm.
Once I put all that behind and started doing this things the other way, I don't really even think that way anymore. And it's
That's great.
maybe this
That's
is
great.
intentional or not anymore, but just from those conversations, I've inadvertently started thinking very, very long term. Like, okay, what's like the direct shipper thing? Okay, I'm thinking, okay, what's best for my business in the next 10 years? Broker freight, direct shipper freight. I've learned absolutely how valuable relationships are. Like I'm willing to say it might be the most valuable thing when you're looking to build a business because you're going to haul right. Okay, so we haul freight, right? Obviously, setting a truck up right is important for fuel economy, efficiency, drivers. But when you get down to just the business part of it, the
Hmm.
actual running the business part, not driving, right?
Hmm.
Relationships is the most important part. I don't
Hmm.
care. Like so many people will sit down and tell you, you got to have an LLC. This is how you structure your business. This is, you know what? Having all those conversations before you've even made a freaking penny. Get out
Hmm.
there and make some money. Give yourself the
Hmm.
best chance to survive this because this is tough. A lot of people won't
Hmm.
survive this.
Hmm.
Don't miss the bigger picture focusing on the minutiae of the details. Like I could care less about your business structure at this, until you're making some serious money. The difference it's going to make is so minuscule and minor. Doesn't
Right.
matter.
Hmm.
You know, I think about so much different things. Like, okay, what's a decision that's going to help me keep drivers for 10 years instead of 1 year? You know, uh, does going out and getting consistent regular freight help me keep drivers? Damn right it does. So this is less, problems I have over the period of 10 years. Um, and good drivers and
Hmm.
help them to be like I care a lot about helping them be successful. Like there's just so much about that. Um,
Hmm.
Less caught up in the day to day, every day, and more caught up in the uh, the long term and the building. So building relationships with a truck dealer has allowed me to, get the inside track on all these different trades he gets coming in.
Mhm.
And if there's a truck that comes in that's kind of sketchy, he'll tell me, and just stay away from that one. You
Mhm.
know, I have a great accountant on my side that anytime I have a question, they'd recently helped me set up a unemployment insurance and get me set up with a payroll system for my new employee that's coming, my first employee rather than subcontractor. Um, and they appreciate the way I do things, and they very much believe in being part of a team. Uh, a couple of different shops I use that are all about it. Um, hey, you need something, you just come in. Because I pay them right away. I try to be a good customer. Everybody's worried about being a good mechanic and having a good shop. Are you a good customer?
Mhm.
Do you try to be a good customer to people? You got to try to be to other people what you want them to be to you,
Right.
right? So
Right.
being a good customer is one of those things. Then they
Yeah.
want you're part of their team. You're part of their
Yeah.
team that helps keep their business going.
Yeah.
And the money part is secondary. Most times,
Mhm.
not always. Don't get me wrong. Somebody's always
Mhm.
gonna
Right.
do the wrong thing. But most times,
Right.
if you focus on being a good partner with somebody, being a good
Mhm.
team member to somebody,
Yeah.
you're gonna treat each other right. There's gonna
Yeah.
be bumps in the road along the way. Um,
Yeah.
but things
Help
kind of
strengthen the
tend to take care
relationship.
things kind of tend to take care of themselves.
Mhm.
Um, so I know it's a lot, but uh, my way of thinking has very much changed since
Mm.
we started doing this. And
Yeah.
you
That's
teach things without intending to teach them.
mm. Yeah, and me hearing you say these things, I mean, I think of some clients where, we've had conversations, and then where you have said, you've had the mind shift, you've changed your way of thinking, and I hear clients, and we'll talk, and they won't say anything, and I'm just talking, and then I'll apologize to them. I'm sorry that I'm talking so much and so long. Hopefully all that makes sense. I know I said a lot, and they're like, no, 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 I'm just listening to you. So and they're telling me, this is good stuff. I hadn't thought about it this way or heard it that way before, what have you. So when you say changing the thought, especially when it comes to relationships, right? Oh man, what you can gain from that, and me talking to some of the clients, and we talk about some of that stuff. Sometimes it doesn't get through, and I can tell, and
Can
I
I
can't do anything about. Go ahead, go ahead.
can I add this to that? And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah. Go ahead.
you might be trying to say this without really
Mm-hmm.
saying it.
Mm-hmm.
So something I've had to see in myself, and this is ironic because I just interrupted you. Um, there's a difference between listening and hearing, right? Are you
Mm.
listening, or are you just waiting for your turn to talk?
Ego.
It is exactly. If you're waiting for your turn to talk, you're waiting for a chance to assert your ego or assert your pride or tell them why you're right. If you're listening, you're taking in what they're saying, you're hearing it, you're processing it, and considering it. You're providing consideration to everything they say. If
Mm-hmm.
you're just waiting for your turn to talk, you're missing the boat. And I feel like in
Yeah.
2020, 2021 with freight and the money, we were waiting for our turn to talk. And when the opportunity was there, we spoke loud.
That's great.
We we s-
Yeah,
we spoke
that's
we spoke loud by taking all the money we could. Which, hey,
uh,
good for you. You should have, but you can do both. You can do that and seize the opportunity at the same time. If you were
yeah,
listening,
that's
if you were listening and paying attention,
mm,
you saw that opportunity. If you were just waiting for your turn to talk, your
yeah,
turn to talk came by taking that money and
yeah.
you took it.
That's a excellent way of putting it. I didn't even think of it that way, but yeah, and then when you were talking about confidence, you can have confidence and listen, So but then when that ego's involved, yeah, you're just taking the money. So um, good. Yeah, no, that's good stuff, man. So it's and I appreciate all that um, being able to help me understand. One of the things was when I was listening back, this was the Ukraine during our Ukraine. It was like a few days after the Ukraine invasion that we had a show, and I had wrote a newsletter on it. And what did you said? Oh, you were talking about the trailer purchase. I don't know if you remember.
Oh,
You were like, and your
oh,
wife,
I was
you,
scared to death.
yeah,
So if you hadn't watched, go back. Like I had looked at some trailers and agreed to purchase like 3 trailers, I think, and it was a lot. It was
Uh,
over $100,000,
yeah.
and I go to South Dakota the night before the Ukraine invasion to pick up the first one. I wake up in the truck stop the next morning
Mm,
and just find out Russia had invaded Ukraine. Fuel prices were going through the roof. The stock market was tanking, and I'm sitting in the truck stop, almost crying. What did I just do? The world just went to crap, and here I just spent all this money. But anyway,
yeah.
that's what we're talking about.
So I mean that, and the reason I bring that up is one of the things you were saying where we have a conversation. It's about, okay, here, let's talk about what you're going to do, and you had asked the question. So if I had called you, what would you have recommended? And I said to you, did you get a good deal on it? And you said, well, yeah, you did your research and blah blah blah. I said, well, knowing you, then you probably made a good choice. I don't know that right now we have to worry about the war impacting us where freight still has to move. You know what I mean? So it's like, hey, let's move forward. You know what I mean? Let's go, basically. And so again, your team, you just outlined part of your team. You know what I'm saying? Or your support system or whatever you want to call it, right? And that's very important when you are starting a business. I mean, you think about it, when you start a business, a support system, it can be your wife, right? It
Hmm.
can be, other family members, it can be friends, but selective ones, right? You don't want that one where you always call them up and then you just have this negative conversation all the time, right?
Poison.
But right, exactly, toxic. You want to have the support system that is healthy, and so I mean, your dog can probably be a part of that, I guess. I don't know, but whatever your system is, you want to have that, and as you grow, you're going to have other people that are part of that, on the professional level, from the standpoint of like all the ones that you just mentioned, and it's very important, because a lot of times we can get out there and think everyone is out to get us, or someone's going to take this or someone's going to do that, and on and so forth. And then if you think about it, and again, when I went through the class earlier this year, and I mean, I had heard this for many, many years and thought I knew what it was all about in terms of, not worrying about, you know, a competition. You know what I'm saying? That's not where your focus should be, in terms of that everyone is going to take your business, right? And you need to hold everything so tightly. And but going through that class, I was able to let that go. And oh my God, what came to me was so much more greater, was more greater, more greater. Anyway, was greater, right? What I received was greater. And so it was a learning experience, but we have to go, we have to let that ego go. You know what I mean? We have
Hmm.
to allow that ego to, we got some kind of way, conquer that ego, and you will find a whole nother world, right? You will see things in a different way. You will receive things in a different way. They talk about that law of attraction. I remember that many, many, many years ago, and I was like, okay, it's kind of hokey or whatever. But I get it. You know what I mean? I get
Yeah,
it in a whole different way now. I understand it, you know.
ego is a defensive position. So,
Mm,
and other people can see that in you. So if they
mm,
see, all right, well, this guy's stuck on his ego, I'm not even going to try to tell him anything.
mm.
So then you miss that whole opportunity of the valuable thing that that person could have told you.
Yes,
And they
right.
and they and they know better. If they're a smart person, they know you don't argue with somebody that has their ego up, because it's pointless.
Hmm.
It's like wrestling a pig in slop. Pig likes it. you know. So it's it can cost you a lot.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, like everybody at some point, you're gonna have days where you're just stuck on it, or having a bad day, or forgetting. Your mind isn't like you and I today. We're both like before this, man. My mind isn't right. I need to get my mind right. So that's comes part of your team. Like we met, we talked about it. Now we're both,
Bingo.
our minds are right.
Bingo. Yeah. It wasn't to communicate so that we can, you know, wallop in anything. You know what I mean? It was all right. No, we know where we're trying to go. We know what we need to do, where we want to be, where we need to be, and that's what it was about. It was elevating us from wherever we were. Not that we were in the dungeons or anything like that, right? It's not. That's not what we're saying. But it's always good. Like we always talk, and when we talk, man, I get off the phone and I'm like, all right, I'm ready to do something. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that doesn't mean I'm ready to go beat someone up. That means I'm ready to be productive. I'm ready to make some things happen. I'm excited about something, you know, and we need that, and especially when things are challenging, right? When things are going well, you know and we tend to miss things. I mean, when things are going really well, it's like sports. It can be that you have a really great offense, but you don't care anything about the defense because you guys are scoring a gazillion points, but there's this big hole, right, that exists in the defense. And then when that main man goes down on offense, and then all of a sudden it's all about the defense as
Hmm.
well. We need to get this guy back, but then all of a sudden the defense there's this big light on the defense. But when things aren't going well, we notice the holes. So when things are challenging, how do we handle the challenges? You know what I'm saying? What do we put out there during that time period?
Well,
Do we want to
that's
just
when you
give?
find out. That's when you find out what you're made of,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
You're gonna, when you go through this thought transition or whatever,
Hmm.
your eyes are gonna be suddenly open to all this opportunity out there.
Yes,
But
sir.
then, there's things that come along with that of problems or challenges or hurdles that are in the way that maybe you didn't see before. So,
Right.
but you grow. That's what makes you grow. So it's not
Yep.
they're not saying if you change your way of thinking or whatever approach that everything's perfect and rosy. That's not the
Right.
case.
No.
Um, there's a lot of growth that has to come with it too.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. It's in personal relationships. You know what I mean? You go through challenges, right? And then it's, how do you handle that? How do you handle those challenges? I mean, you can get through, and like you said, growth comes from that, right? And it helps to strengthen those relationships. It's the same way in business, right? That's the way I look at it. I used to tell people, you know what? Give me an opportunity, give me a chance, to a shipper or whomever. Give me a chance, whatever business I was involved in. But here's the thing, you really won't know what I'm able to do for you until we encounter a situation, right? When we encounter a challenge, when something kind of falls apart or whatever, you'll see how I operate, because some people, you try to get them on the phone, they won't answer, right?
yeah, I,
you
I
know
I lived that. I just recently lived that. So last February,
Mm,
dealing with one of my customers, I screwed up. I put some trust in somebody that I shouldn't have,
mm,
and they stabbed me in the back and got me in trouble with my customer, and it ended right there. We haven't really done anything since February,
mm,
but some people you got to learn how to deal with people. Some people you just got to leave it alone. Some
mm,
people you got to try to mend that fence. They learn about you, you learn about them, but guess what? Here it is coming up to our busy season again, and then they reached out to me.
mm,
So even though I screwed up,
mhm.
hopefully this is the opportunity to work through it. I guarantee you, I'm not
Yeah.
going to screw that up again. Make
Yeah.
that same mistake, and
Right.
you're gonna make mistakes. Like you're
Yeah.
gonna lose customers. But it's as long as you don't sit there and throw your hands up. Well, it's all over. It's all
Yeah.
done.
And then
Um,
repeat it. You know what I mean? You don't want to repeat it. I mean, do figure it out. So next time comes around, it's like, all right, I mean, however you handle it, but I mean, I know I've done this before. Hey, Shirley, or whoever it is, hey, I know this is what happened before. Like, I may go through a situation or something comes up, and then it comes to my attention. Hey, we need to take care of this. I am not even about apologizing at that moment. I mean, I might say, man, I'm so sorry for this or whatever, but that's not even at the top of my list. My list is, what's wrong? You know what I mean? Explain, let me understand what's happening. Okay, let me go into this plan of action mode. Let me figure this out, and let me get to work, right? And I'm figuring stuff out and I get it done. And then in the end, here's the solution. Here's what's going to happen or whatever. But I'm involving everyone, right? And so at that point, I've taken charge, right? Not that I'm not listening to anyone, but I've taken charge, right? So it's an opportunity, right? It's an opportunity because guess what? It's almost like a situation where I'm being interviewed, right? I'm in this situation right now where someone, I have an opportunity to show them what I can do, that might not be going through my head. It just might be naturally that it's like, let's get into fix mode. But in the end, it's like, okay, here's where we're at. And this is what we were able to do. And, this is, here's the solution. And this is what's going to happen. And here's the numbers for you. And here, we're going to talk to such and such so that we make sure we're on the same page or whatever. Done. So I've fixed all that, tied it up. Then Shirley's expectation is for all this to happen, right? So Shirley might be, her attitude might be this, might be, okay, Paul, thank you. I appreciate it. Great. Now I can go on with my day, or it might be, we'll see. You know what I mean? We'll see if
Mm.
this works, right? And if that's the case, I get it. You see what I mean? So I'm able to understand her and not get mad with her, be like, look, I did all this and that's what I get. No, let me get this taken care of. Now I've done that, and hopefully it all works out. And if it all works out, then I may have already apologized to her, but I can apologize to her again and say, hey, you know what? I'm truly sorry for this and that and blah blah blah. If it was our fault, hey, I can compensate her or do whatever. Maybe it wasn't even my fault, right? Sometimes I'll just take it. Maybe it was Shirley's fault. But I'll lay out everything that I found. But what Shirley then can realize is this: there's some value in this guy. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? There's some value in what he brought to the table. Shirley may never work with me again, but again, I was able to go, they put me through an exercise that helped me to gain some experience, right, in a situation. And at least hopefully I've learned something, right? And if I've learned something, then I know how to be a better representative or whatever, or a better freight connect for the next person, right? The next customers that come along. I have a story. You know what? Here's the situation that happened, and this is how we handled it. You see what I mean? So I have something that I can add to my resume. So look at those as opportunities. You know what I mean? When those situations come up, those are opportunities. Those are opportunities for growth. And you can take that experience to any other job that you might go to, or any other venture, right? That you may go into, because you're not ever going to look at it as, oh man, this is just too hard, or that you can't win. You can win. You learn from challenges, and that's the attitude to take. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boy. Okay. So what was the last question I asked you? I don't
I
remember. I don't remember.
don't
So
know. I just
something that's playing in my mind here is, okay, let's talk about, we've explained the service that you do, helping smaller carriers connect with direct shipper opportunities. When you get phone calls, I imagine there's many different kinds of phone calls, and this is the purpose of this question, is to, give a specific example of things people can work on. W- You take a phone call from a guy, says, "Hey, I got one truck or two trucks. I'm in whatever Southeast Pennsylvania. I need a customer where to run this area, do this, blah blah blah, and here's what I want. Here's what I need to make, blah blah blah." And off the bat, okay, these are all the wrong questions. Or these are all the
mm,
wrong statements. Okay, we're focused on
mm.
the wrong
Oh, I see what
focused
you're
on the
saying.
wrong
Yeah,
thing here.
I see.
Um, they're taking the approach of this as if we're dealing with a broker or what have you, instead of this other situation we're trying to build something.
Mm, mm,
How do you approach that, or how can we try to educate people to to see if they're ready for that, or to get them to have that
mm.
change of having these different conversations and thinking about this
Yeah.
in a different way?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Or even what are some of the things you would hear that would
Yeah.
indicate to you that, okay, that we got to work on this stuff before we get to that stuff?
Well, I mean, there are people at different levels in the business, right? Whether they have just entered the business or have been at it a while, or have, just a truck or two, or have 100 trucks, whatever the case is. So, people are different. So, there's a lot of different conversations. But the thing is that, a lot of the carriers that I talk to are smaller carriers, so they deal in the spot market, right? And looking for freight, looking for direct freight or whatever. And it's a matter of, hey, I just want it given to me. You know what I mean? I'm looking, hey, what do you got? Give it to me. Versus, all right, what do I have to do to earn it? right? And what do I need to put in to get it? Not just necessarily pay you and give you money so that I can get it, but what's the educational piece that's going to help me in this whole process? So people don't, I don't hear it from that perspective, right? It's more about, this is what I want, and I want a customer like this, and I want a customer like that. Well, let's kind of step back and look at this in reality. We follow the economy, right?
Mm-hmm.
We hear all kind of news about the economy, right? How does it impact us? There's so many ways that we can point out how it impacts our industry. And when shippers are a part of that, whether it's a manufacturer, right, retail store, distributor, whatever, there's all these people that we go to get the business from, but they're a part of this economy, right? And they've got to play in the same pool, and it impacts them just the same, right? When we talk about inflation, right, we talk about it in terms of the CPI, right? And then there's the PPI, right, which is the inflation for, businesses, manufacturing, when they get their product from other businesses, what the cost is, right? So there's also that they deal with as well. So they're in a situation where they have to figure out things and make decisions and what have you. And when you come to them, just because you want to make $3 a mile, right? The bigger picture, does it really fit into that bigger picture, in terms of what you're presenting? You may need to make, whatever money you need to make to keep operating, but you've got to be able to communicate with them, the shipper, in terms of that partnership, right? Let's have a conversation. Let me understand you, because when you call a broker, it's totally different than calling a shipper, right? That's a
So
different conversation.
what
Yeah.
what I'm hearing, so I understand this is when
Yeah.
people call you,
Yeah.
rather than saying, here's what I'm willing to do or here's what I can deliver,
Yeah.
the first thing is here's what I want,
Sure.
here's what I
Right.
need. And then
Absolutely.
when you get to the customer, say,
Yeah.
okay, you need $3 a mile, you need this.
Yeah.
Have you given any consideration to what their needs are so
Mm-hmm.
that you can come to a deal,
Mm-hmm.
or even understand why they need that, what's
Mm-hmm.
going on in
Right.
the bigger picture?
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds to me like you're saying, uh, be don't be as concerned of what you want, or be concerned with, figure out what everybody's needs are. Obviously, you have to have, a certain amount to operate and be.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong, it is important, but maybe that's the approach that you work your way into, whereas you start with, okay, let's see what everybody's needs are,
Mm-hmm.
and then, okay, you may find out you can't meet their needs. So what does it even matter what you want or
Right.
need? You can't
Absolutely.
even meet their needs.
Right.
And then you may find out later they can't meet your needs. But first you got to understand what everybody wants or needs.
Yeah, it's a thing of where, you're not always going to be a good fit. That's a given. You're not going to be a good fit for everyone. They have some carriers call me and they're like, well, we talk about direct freight, and they'll say, oh yeah, but I can't get direct freight. And I'm like, why? And they say, well, because they want carriers that have more trucks than I've got. And I'm like, oh, okay. That is true for some shippers, right? It's not true for all, right?
Right. Right.
So right there, that can totally block you from a lot of opportunity, right? So coming in with a certain mindset, um, because the way I look at it, and I told you about this, and I want to get off, so I know you'll keep me on track. So when I was building my website, I went to the guy and I told him back in 2015, I knew nothing about building websites. And I was like, hey, I found him, he's overseas and what have you. And I had to tell him all this stuff that I wanted and what I was trying to do. And I was like, man, this is so exhausting. And then he did tell me on some things, we can't do that. I'm like, can't do it? All right. And he said, well, that just can't be done. And I'm like, okay. So my mind was limited at that point, right? It was like, okay, I wonder if we can do this. I wonder if I can do that. And that's how my conversation would go to him. I'd be like, I was thinking about this, but I don't know if it can be done. And then some years later, when I'm communicating with him and I'm talking about some of the things that I would like my website to do, that I wanted to be done. And the very first time I talked to him, when he told me it couldn't be done, he said, oh, yeah, we can do that. I was like, you told me it couldn't be done. He said, oh, well, there's been advancement and we can do that now. And blah, blah, blah. I was like, Oh, so what that told me was do not limit myself in, in what I'm thinking. Do not put a limit on what I think, right? If it doesn't exist now, so be it. But I don't like to limit ideas. Like when you and I are talking, I don't like to limit ideas. I just like to just go, just talk, however we talk. And even if it sounds ridiculous, I don't care. So coming back to this here, when talking to someone and we're talking about that bigger shippers, they need a carrier that has more trucks. Let's not put a limit on that, right? I don't know who
Mhm.
you've been talking to. What has been your experience? Have you explored it yourself, or you're just going based upon what someone told you? Even if it was a shipper, they don't speak for all the shippers, right? There's a lot of shippers out there,
Right.
right? There's a lot of opportunities that exist. We just got to figure out how to get it. Just like we got to figure out how to do this on the website, right? We just got to figure it out. Technology has told me no, having the right attitude has told me, eliminating ego has told me there's a lot of things that are possible, right? So when I do have conversations with people, um, and they may feel like again, even with brokers and then shippers, brokers, whew, that can really tear you down. You know what I mean? When you have these conversations, because you're looking at the games that the brokers are playing, if they're playing a game, right? It's easy to see a load on the board and then see somebody else has that load on the board. And then you're playing the game and going back and forward. And it's all to get that one piece of business. And I get it, but you don't want that to jade you in a way that you miss out on other opportunities, that exist. So when I'm communicating with people that call me, it's about tell me what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So I don't mind hearing what you've got to say, regardless of if it's in a selfish tone. I don't care, whatever. We're going to go through the process because I believe that there are, a lot of people they talk to each other and they end up getting the same mindset, and somebody has to help deconstruct that, tear that down, right? So that we can build it back up in a different way. So we'll have those conversations and I'll hear them tell me what they want. And I'll break it down to the point where it's like, okay, now let's start talking about some other things. Let's start talking about the shipper as well. How does this all fit together? How can it fit together if it is so one-sided? It can't. You know what I mean? It really can't. There are some people that call me and will talk to me and say, but I know that shippers want this, or I need to be thinking like this. The reason why they say that is because they've watched one of our videos. You know what I mean? I can tell when they've
Okay.
watched one of our videos because they'll start talking in the sense of backing up and not say so much about what they want. They'll talk about what they want, but they'll say, "But I know I need to talk to the shipper, and I need to do this, and I need to do that." And I'm like, "Oh, they watched one of the videos." So again, it's a matter of just almost like one at a time, have to have that type of conversation so that they understand that and multiple times we have to have that conversation that it's not just about you. You know what I mean? Because if it's all about you, uh, it's relationships. I
Yeah.
don't know any other way to say
So
it.
let's jump just a little bit further down the road in this process to something
Yeah,
that just it baffles my mind
yeah.
of how it ends here. Okay. So somebody calls you, you have your conversation. They may pay you to take your course, or they may pay you to hire you for your service. You go through the process. Um, they're all on board, and it comes down to go time, where you may call them and say, Adam, I just had a great conversation with so and so over at this company.
Mm-hmm.
They want to talk to you. They
Mm-hmm.
have all your information. They know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you need to call them. The deal is all but done. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the introduction is made. They know who you are. They have agreed in principle to do business with you.
Mm-hmm.
All I have to do is pick up the phone and dial those numbers,
Yeah.
and I don't do it.
Mm.
And
Okay.
I know it ends with a lot of people with you like this, to where
Mm.
they don't make the phone call.
Mm-hmm.
Or they'll sign up and hire you, and whatever fee is involved, and pay it, and then you never hear from them again.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this whole thing about the follow through.
Mm-hmm.
It's I understand why people have trouble making that phone call. It can be intimidating, but by the time we've gotten to this far, you got to have some kind of optimism. Like, I
Yeah.
hired you to do this. You delivered this to me that I didn't think
Mm-hmm.
was really possible in the first place, because all my
Mm-hmm.
preconceived, oh, they don't deal with the guy with one truck. This can't happen. We
Mm-hmm.
can't do this. Can't do that. Well, we've just
Yeah.
proven all that wrong. Now we're to the
Yeah.
point where the deal is done. It's a warm conversation, and
Mm.
I can't physically pick up the phone and make the call,
Yeah.
and it all falls apart there. So
Yeah.
how do we fix that?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is definitely a process, and so we're working on that program the initial cold call, right? Like you said, man, it can be brutal. I mean, I just talked to a client the other day, or someone the other day, and they were like, making those calls. I've done it before, but I know that's not something I want to do, because they've done it before,
It's
and now
hard.
within their business, they've grown and they're trying to do other things, but they still need that, right? They
Hmm.
need that, and they may not have the time to do it, right? Or they're just like, I don't want to do that because it does take time to do it, and I need to spend my time over here. This is what she told me. She said, I between my time and money, you know, she said, I more value my time. And so therefore I'm willing to give up the money for someone to do that, that part that takes my time, which is reaching out to these shippers, right? So with that said, say then there's an opportunity, and it's then presented to you. You didn't have to make that initial call, or you didn't even have to make 100 calls to get to that one call, right? So maybe sometimes it's kind of like maybe the silver spoon thing. It's like it's served to you on the silver platter, but you don't know what was put in to get it. So therefore maybe there's not, you don't really
It's
value it as much or whatever. Yeah,
it's
go
like
ahead.
it's like how hot dogs are made. Like, hot dogs are tasty. Well, I love to eat them. It's great when they come off the grill. You put whatever else on them, but you don't want to know what it took to make that hot dog over the last couple weeks, right? You
Mm,
make the hot dogs, and then
yeah.
you serve them up and make people happy. They have no idea what went into
Yeah, it's been a while since I had a hot dog, but yeah, you're right. It's been a while. I thought about having a hot dog the other day. I'm not gonna lie, but I don't know if it was easy for me to say no. But yeah, you're right. So what it takes to make that hot dog, or what it takes to make that call, or to get it to that point that it's a warm opportunity, even to the point of where, it that okay, so let's say we get someone on the phone, right? We have a conversation with them, we get them out the information, and they're like, okay, I'm not moving anything right now, maybe in 6 months, because this is how our cycle works. But yeah, send that to me, or yeah, I'm okay with such and such, give me a call or whatever, right? You still have to build the relationship, right? There's still some work to put in, you know. But if you think about it, any of your personal relationships, right? There's a lot of people that you meet, but not all of them turn into, this relationship, right? Not all of them become a part of your circle. Not all of them become, right? Some people come, some go, unfortunately. But the thing is that it takes time, right? Over time, you guys build this fondness or this relationship, and then at some point in time there may be where you have an argument or a disagreement or whatever, but you figure it out and you move on because you value the relationship. But it started somewhere. You had to put some time in, right, to help to make that grow. Here's your business, right? Well, we're talking, like you said, long term. You're talking about 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road. Here's where you'd like your business to be. That one customer and that one encounter is not going to make your company what it is going to be, or hopefully will be, in 5 or 10 years, right? There's a process that goes into it, and building that relationship, it could lead to another relationship or another opportunity. And as you grow and develop and all that good stuff, 5 years down the road, you have to be a different person than you were today, than you
right?
are today.
You made the
you know,
comment that 5 years from now they probably won't be a part of your company or what your company becomes, but they will be a part of who you are
the growth. Yeah.
because of your interaction with them. That
Yeah.
you're gonna learn something or change because of them or your interaction with them.
Hmm.
So it's not
Absolutely. What
your
to do, what not
company
to do
and
with.
you are exclusive. You're
Hmm.
together. You're one and the same, and
Hmm.
you grow together.
Hmm. Yeah, there's so many, like if we looked at, I remember when I was at a company and it was a brokerage, big brokerage, and I had a team, a sales team, and my guys would come to me or gals would come to me, and they would be like, "Hey, Paul, I got a problem." It's like, okay, so you have an opportunity, right? Or you have a challenge, is what I call it, right? Because in that, it's like there's an opportunity in it. You know what I mean? There's an opportunity to learn, to grow, and what have you. So I'm looking at, okay, I don't know what they're going to tell me, right? It might be something that I've been through or maybe not, because I'd have to go to other departments to get help. But when I did that, watch this, when I went to other departments, I built relations. It gave me an opportunity to build a relationship in another department, right? And not just with the representative, but even the head of that department, right? So when I would come to them the next time, hey, Paul, you know what I mean? Hey, what you got? You see what I'm saying? I was able to build relationships that really mattered and made a difference. So when my people came to me, and what I used to do also was this: I would take my agent representative with me to that other department at some point and introduce them to that person, and we would kind of talk some things out. You see what I mean? I was working to build them up as well. So when something came up, they didn't always have to come to me. And at the same time, they were able to be solution oriented. You know what I mean? And so now I'm building a team of solution-oriented agents, right?
Hmm.
And you're able to grow in that, right? It's not it's you can take one situation that can help you in so many others, or you can train someone, right, in a situation, and or a situation can come up and you both can learn in that situation. It can help you in so many other things. It can help you to get to where you want to be in 5 years. You know what I'm saying? So there's so many opportunities that exist when we look at them as instead of looking at them as problems, even with the economy or even with other countries and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not saying everything is roses, right?
Hmm.
But there's opportunity. That's the way I look at it.
Well, part of being successful in team building too is surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you, or that are at a
Mm.
higher level than you. 'Cause you aspire to become them. So when you encounter these people, learning from them. So let me ask you. You're far along in your journey. How did you get you and your business to where you are today? What was
Oh,
what helped you? What
yeah.
cemented it all for you?
You know what? Okay, so, and I was thinking about this, man, before our show, like just some people in my life, how I didn't realize, there's sometimes we don't realize some things, good or bad. There's some things we just don't realize, and there's some people in my life where it was like, wow, um, I didn't realize we had developed that type of relationship when it should not be that way. Or no, 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 where some people will question it and be like, wow, you were able to have a relationship with that person in that way, and so I'm not going to get into the details of it, but I'll say this. I need someone to I want to bring aboard an agent or someone. I need help, right? So I was talking to someone from my past, right? And we were able to now have a good working relationship. We're good. You know what I mean? Most people would be like, "Wow, how are you guys good? That doesn't make any sense." No, we're good. The relationship is good. So I was out and I was talking and I just mentioned, yeah, I need to find someone. Not even really looking for someone, but know that I need someone, in my office. And so a day or two later, I get a text saying, "Hey, are you available?" or something like that. It's like, "Yeah, what's up? What do you need?" And they were like, "Hey, I got someone for you." like, you got someone for me? What do you mean? Someone that can help you in the office and blah, blah, blah. So I went and met with her and we were talking and she's like, yeah, I remember you said such and such the other day. Cause I was like, how did she figure this all out? It was just something in passing, right? I said, and I was like, this is great. All right, well, yeah, let me talk to him on Monday. I met him and we're going to meet on Monday, right? And it was just something I said in passing, but because of the relationship, right? That happened. It was that easy. I don't know how this guy's going to work out, but she tends to attract some pretty good people, solid people. She's a pretty good judge of character as well. So I'm like, well, okay, cool. I didn't even have to go out and find someone, right? So we'll see how that works. My point is, as an example, you know, trying to you know, ha there are people in our lives, and we can have ego in the way, right? Ego can really, really mess a lot of things up, right? Can block us from a lot of things. So for me, I try to eliminate that ego thing, and try to work with multiple people. And they end up schooling me, educating me on things and turning me on to so many things and things that I've not even taken advantage of. But my point is that if I were to go out there and take advantage of some of these things that people have presented to me just based upon these relationships, good example, you and I, right? When we met, I called you up and you were like
Yeah. Like,
very
why is this
skeptical.
guy calling? What the heck does this guy want? He wants to
You were
what?
very Yeah, you were very skeptical, and you had mentioned, I think you had seen something I had sent an email out, some kind of way you were in my network, right? And
Well, go
um,
back
and
a
then
little
so
further. The
we,
first time I blew you off and told you call me back in a year,
is that
and you
right?
did.
Really?
Yep.
Wow,
Yep.
wow. Well, I kept you in the network, and we connected. We had the conversation, and I could tell that you were kind of drilling me, and I was like, okay, I got nothing to hide. So we talked, and then you said, okay, well, you know what? I'm interested, and you said, well, so who do you have that is doing like marketing for you or something like that? And I was like, I don't know, I don't have anyone. I'm just bad at that. That's not my thing, Like you may say, I don't toot my own horn. I mean, that I am I'm no good at that, really. So you and I have been doing this thing, and it has been like you talk about me and being good for your business. Man, you've been amazing for me. I can't even lie. I mean, I don't know that I even ever say that, but I can't lie from the and just the interaction with other people, the interaction with you and I having conversations. We went out to the truck show. Man, we had a great time, and just being able to have someone like that, like you in your corner, you know what I mean? And being able to grow, because like you said, you have been able to grow, through the relationship and the relationship that we have. I've grown, a ton, and you have been willing to be, so to speak, a guinea pig in the sense that, hey, you know what? Let me do this. This is something I said I want to do, and I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? And that
Hmm.
helps to prove that, oh, this does work. You know what I mean? So regardless of what someone else might say, it's like, you know what? All I can say is if you're not doing A, B, and C, you know what I mean? Or if you're not thinking about your business in this way, here are some things that you need to do. We have a questionnaire that we send out. We send it out to our clients when they sign up, so that we can set them up. And sometimes that questionnaire will come back half filled, half completed. And these are questions about them and about their business. And if one is not able to complete it, it doesn't have to be these long drawn out paragraphs, but if this is stuff you've not thought about, right? Or taken time to think about, hmm. So you're saying that you're having a challenge here or you're having a challenge there. Maybe we should stop at the questionnaire and let's look at some of these things,
Well, there's
right?
there's a common theme here in everything you've said in about the last 2 minutes, and the word is you. So
Hmm.
we haven't even gotten to the point where we're talking about going and approaching a shipper yet. We're talking first about
Uh,
you. Like,
Yeah.
okay, you can't effectively fill out this questionnaire. You can't articulate to me what your needs or wants are. So it takes a lot of personal development or challenging yourself. Or, okay, if we're to this point, you ready? You want me to fill out this questionnaire and I can't do it. I got to
Mm,
realize in myself, like, what the hell am I doing? I
mm,
can't fill out these simple questions. If I can't take a pen and write on a piece of paper to answer some questions so that this guy can market my business to customers, how does he have a chance to go out and sell my services, sell my company, sell me, if I can't bother to give this basic information and answer a few questions, right? So then you got
mm,
to stop and say, okay, and if you can't do this for yourself, then you're in trouble. If you can't recognize this for yourself, I don't want to say you don't have a chance, but you got a long ways to go. Of, man, am I ready for this? Like, am I doing my part? Because I got to stop and think. If this is all I have to do, my part is pretty simple. And if I can't
yeah.
be bothered to do that or do a good job at it,
Mm.
mm,
To sell
that's
yourself even.
that's that's a me problem.
Yeah, I
Because,
mean, to
okay,
sell
say
to
you
sell.
push that through and Paul goes
Mm-hmm.
out and successfully sells you.
Mm,
How are you going to deliver on that? Like, how do you
mm,
deliver on those promises if you can't look yourself in the mirror and say, I filled out this piece of paper to the best of my ability and it's complete? If you can't do that,
mm,
you're going to have trouble fulfilling promises and obligations to a customer.
mm. Yeah, selling yourself, whether it's selling yourself to yourself, or selling yourself to others, because I mean, business is sales, man. There's at every level. If
Yeah,
you're the
it is.
CEO, you're teaching and you're selling. You're listening, right? What does this department need? What does the vice president of sales and marketing need? What does the vice president strategic planning need? Operations and what have you? And those are relationships, right? You've got all these.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody wants to call themselves a CEO, right? Some people, they say, hey, I wear all the hats, and whether it's the trash or finding the loads, booking the loads, and everything that they do, all the everything, right? But they call themselves the CEO, right? So think about that as a CEO of a rather large company. I mean, I don't know. A lot of CEOs, these CEOs of these big companies, they get paid a lot of money, but I think, there's a skill
Hmm.
set that's required, and there's a
Are,
lot of
are you
things that
are
they
you
have to
acting
do.
like it?
Huh? Are
You're
you,
calling
yeah,
yourself
are
that, but are you acting like it?
there you go. If you are giving yourself a title, and this is, I am against titles, but yet at the same
Me
time,
too.
I'm for them in the sense of that if you if you have this title and then here's what the job description is, right? Are you that, or are you working toward that? Because I can be on a job and somebody says, you know what, Paul, I'm going to make you a manager. I want you to, this is what you're going to do, or whatever the position is. I get that title, and then I'm like, oh, I feel good, and I'm beating my chest, and I'm thinking I've arrived. You got a lot of work. You were just recognized, maybe, hopefully, for some things that you do where you would fit in to that role well, but yet there's some growth that's required, right? And you've got to understand, what is required to be successful, at that position. So if you're the CEO of your company, right? What does it require? If you have people, teams, you've got to be able to interact with. It doesn't mean you know everything, right? They're supposed to be the expert in that department, but you've got to be able to interact. You have to be able to, cast a vision, right? You have to be able to sell. You have to be able to give them what they need. You have to be able to go acquire what it is that they need, right? To help their department be successful. You're there as a support. You're there to help motivate. You know what I mean? So when you are even just a one-man shop, you still have other people that you have to interact with, right? To help your business be successful, even if it's a shipper, right? Or even a broker. So sales, right? It plays a part in your business. It does. And so how am I going to be able to sell anything with the lack of knowledge, or with even the lack of knowledge of my business, right? Like you said, if I can't even fill out this form, have I thought have I been thoughtful about my business, right? Have I been thoughtful about myself? Because some of the questions ask about you, like some of your attributes, and thinking about how those attributes actually play in your business. Because I used to ask people this, and I'll stop. I used to ask people this when I would hire them. One of the questions was, tell me three things that I forget how it went, that you like about yourselves, or maybe three attributes or whatever. And people would stop and they would think. They couldn't answer. They always went to the negative. They always went, well, I could do this better, or, I'm like, no, I'm not asking that question. Here's the question I'm asking. And I would have to actually give them at least one or two because I've already identified something, right? I've already identified at least what I take notice of. But it's so hard for us sometimes to find those things for some reason. Maybe we've been beat up all our lives and that's all we know. But some kind of way we got to rewire this thing, whether it's taking a class or whether it's looking at our circle and changing the people that are around us, what we're watching on YouTube. And does that make sense? You know what I mean? That
Yeah, if
so
it may be an interesting exercise would be before you get too far into something or approach something, sit down with a piece of paper in front of a mirror and sell you to yourself. See if you can sell yourself on you. If you
yeah.
if you if you can't sell yourself on you, I don't think anybody else can sell you.
No. No, because then at that point, you have to put the work in. And if you don't believe in what has been sold, right? You know, you're not going to put the work in. The work, it's not going to be seen. It's going to be like, man, I got taken. So if if you're able to fill out that questionnaire, right, or better yet, say, all right, I didn't even think about this, right? Let me think about this. Let me figure this out. That's good. And you should always do that, because once you get to a certain level, you may have to revisit that, right? And because, we want to grow, and it all goes back to your business. You see what I mean? It all does connect with your business. So, and seeing opportunities and taking advantage of them.
Yeah. Wow. We talked about a lot of different things. I know there was way more we were going to talk about, but like this could turn into 6-7 hours easily.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
know.
have that in me.
I
Um,
know.
this is I really appreciate this. I know most times we just talk about freight and the markets, but these things are just as important.
Yeah,
They really are,
yeah.
because people are going out of business. People are falling off, and you have to find ways to reinvent yourself or rework yourself. Or if you want to be here, like this is an everyday thing of trying to improve. You know,
Hmm.
there's still a ton of people flooding into this market, which I just don't. It's crazy to me. There's a lot of people falling out, but
Hmm.
there's still people coming in, building themselves a really expensive operation.
Hmm.
And I'm like, what are you thinking? What do
Hmm.
you think? You haven't put a ton of thought into this, or you're not a forward thinking person.
Hmm.
So uh, best of luck. But then again, too, it's good to know who your competition is, because eventually a person like that is of no competition
Hmm.
to a lot
Well,
of us that run a very efficient operation.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't, let's see, what's today? Today's Saturday. So was it this week? I think maybe it was Monday. But so a trucking company shut down, Yellow Freight.
Hmm.
And I think the number is 30,000 employees, maybe, I think is
Okay.
what it is. So they got to find work, and now
Hmm.
unemployment level is low, right? And so that's great. So, and there are jobs out there to be had or what have you. But if they want to be in the trucking industry, right, that, and there's some of them, that's all they know, right? So they feel like, hey, I got to find a job. So the industry is like, how do we absorb these people? And then there's other companies, whether it's I don't know, XPO and some other companies absorbing that freight loss, right,
Hmm.
or gain for them, and then prices are going to go up, right? You know, so those prices will go up, but you hate to see that happen. And Yellow, they had been on, they've been challenged for a long time, you know.
Yeah, that's been a long time coming.
Yeah, that's been a long time coming. But the thing is that individuals that are in that industry and they come out, um, they are they may be looking at a totally different landscape than what yellow offered.
Yeah,
And
so
they, Mhm,
you're right. And it goes back to the self-realization thing of a lot of those drivers are damaged. They may
mm,
have 40 years experience, but it being the situation that they were in with yellow, it's 40 years of I'm home every night no matter what. 40 years of it, it ain't my job. You know, there's some things that come along with being in that situation that don't allow you to perform very well in the rest of the market. So
mhm,
some of these people are going to have that self-examination moment, um,
mhm,
because there's a certain mentality with a lot of the people that have been there for 30 years. So
mhm.
it's adapt or die, unless you
Yeah.
can find a position at another company just like them.
Yeah, right, right, and that's what you're talking about, adapt to die. So let's even look at it from the COVID standpoint, where we're going through COVID, everything was great, and there wasn't a need to try and change anything, just take the money grab. But then when things change, then it's like, uh-oh, what do I do now? I can complain about things or I can, try to adjust and figure things out. Well, with these people at Yellow, again, we talked about that, financially, it's been tough for them for a long, I'm talking about years, I mean, as far as I know, going back to even, the 2000 and I don't know, 5 or something like that. I don't remember how long ago it was or whenever Yellow Roadway um, merged. But while you're there at Yellow, the writing seems like it was on the wall, right?
Oh yeah,
Then it's
absolutely.
like, all right, what should I be doing here? What should I do? Should I maybe get some training? This might be a good time while I still have a job, right? I can get some training. Looking to the future. What could be my options because this could shut down any time. A lot of us don't think that way. A lot of us just want to go to work and I get that, but we're talking about you having a trucking company. There's people that do dispatch here. There's people that probably brokers that are on this. There's all kind of people who are thinking about getting into the industry that may see this. Then you have carriers, you have drivers, But again, let's not just look at it from the standpoint of, oh, I feel this pain and it hurts and complain about it, but let's see what's really going on, right? And identify it and adjust. You know what I mean? Make some adjustment, make some changes. So it's kind of a yellow situation right now. There's some pain. So what do I do about it? Do I just allow the pain to be there, and then when everything falls out, then I have to fall through as well?
It's a matter of are you going to just sit there and let things happen to you and not be in control of your own destiny, or are you going to
Yeah,
participate in your own destiny?
yeah,
You might not be able to fully control it, but you can participate in it
yeah.
and self-determine a lot of it. It's just a
Hmm.
matter of uh, do you want to, or there's a lot of victim mentality too of, oh, I lost my job, I need unemployment for the next 2 years. Well, you can probably get another job in trucking, if you got a pretty clean record and some experience.
Hmm.
But uh, it's it goes back to mindset with that too. Of are you going to participate in your own outcome?
Mm. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And it can be fun. So listening to Adam, hearing some stuff, what Adam has to say, that can play a part in, how move to the next step.
It's not
Um,
all good. I make mistakes too. I make
yeah, yeah,
mistakes all the
well,
time. It's
you
just how you
learn from
handle
it.
them.
I'll
You
learn
got to
from
own
your
them.
mistake.
I've gotten good at owning my mistakes.
Yeah,
I made a mistake yesterday. I owned it. Uh,
yeah, that's
uh,
big.
it's not always fun. Sometimes it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Uh, but you own it and you move on. And some people really appreciate that. Some people, it's how you build respect and it's how you build people's trust or whatever.
Hmm.
Oh, this guy, if he messes up, he'll own it. Rather than
Hmm.
try to hide it. Uh, so and customers see that too.
Yeah,
People in your business, they see that too.
yeah,
So back in
appreciate it.
February when I messed up, I told her straight up, I screwed up. I thought I
Hmm.
was doing this. Turns out you didn't need that or didn't want me to do that, and but I did it. So
Hmm.
I own it.
Yeah. Yeah.
She asked me who over there at this company runs this. I'm like, that would be me.
She went right to
You're
the source,
talking to
huh?
him.
She,
You're
yeah,
talking to him, and then it was
yeah,
a tirade of anger for a little bit, and then then the
yeah.
conversation ensues, and it is what it is.
What it is, yeah, yeah. But it's all good. So I would say this, man, trucking, yeah, there's some challenges that are going on right now. Um, look, learn about the economy, learn, some things that are happening out there. It does impact us. But again, things are cyclical. You know what I'm saying? And then you just have to know how to play during each phase of the cycle, you know.
Okay, so we're approaching 2 hours here. Let's tie this up a little bit at the end here. Let me ask you one question.
Yep.
I'll put a lot of questions into this one question. Uh, Calling shippers, direct customers. How much success are you having? Is it still worth doing right now? Should people still be taking that approach? Um, what's your success ratio right now? Is there still opportunity out there? Blah blah
Yeah.
blah. So,
Yeah.
what would you say about that?
I would say, okay, again, it's cyclical, right? And there's a time when things are challenging, right? You just either you do have to work harder. You have to be smarter, meaning working to think outside the box, right? And then and do, have that positive attitude. If this is what you want to do, right? There's no reason to have a negative attitude every day, right? And something that you say you want to do, that makes no sense. Is it harder? It's definitely harder now. We've got in reaching out to shippers, you have to reach out to more shippers, right? Again, because what I hear now is a lot of them seem to have their own trucks, right? And then they also uh, have customers moving the freight for them. But at the same time, we're talking, for me, I don't know, July historically had been um, slow in the sense that there was some shift. It always seemed that way for some reason. I'm talking about like when I was brokering, but we still have, what is it, 5 more months? Dang, that's August, September, October, November. It's 5 more months this year, right? So we're here at the second half, and I don't know what the holiday is going to be like, but the point again is that it's not, things are not going to stop. The economy is not going to stop. Businesses are still going to exist. There's still going to be product. People are still going to be buying things and what have you. So right now, even though things are challenging, it is because people are like, I get 100 calls a day, wanting my freight. Well, there are carriers that are falling off, right? The market has been saturated. There's been a lot of capacity. Um, so if you operate smart, still get brokered freight, do what you got to do. But I say build those relationships with direct shippers and others. Work to build relationships. Continue to do that. At some point down the road, whether it's a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, you'll be like, oh, okay, I was there, a few years ago, but now I'm here, right? Okay, I see things in a completely different way. I hear
Hmm.
people maybe complaining about this and that, but they don't understand, right? You understand because you've gone through it. So you just have to go through it. It's like working out. It's not fun working out and going through the pain, but once you get through that wall, it's not as bad as it was before. You're at a whole nother level. You know what I mean? But you just have to go that and build that muscle up, so that you can get to where you're trying to get to. Does that
Yeah, and
make
you
sense?
you just described what I've gone through in the last 3 years
Mm,
of doing that. Are things perfect for us? No, not by any means.
yeah,
But I'm glad I did it. I couldn't imagine what it would be right now for us having not done that. I don't
yeah,
even know if we'd be in business here.
yeah,
I try to build a relationship with everybody I talk to.
yeah,
We have a mutual person we talk to in Casey. Uh,
yeah,
we have a
yeah,
pretty good relationship with him over there, and you're doing some work for them, which is I'm excited by. I
yeah.
think
Me too.
it's gone better than I expected in this current environment.
Yeah.
Uh, I didn't think there was a lot of possibilities out there, but you've had some good results. So, um, can't imagine looking back what things would be like right now.
Mm, yeah.
Uh, and it makes me optimistic to the future of,
Mm,
okay, well, that's just this certain period of time having only done this much. What could the future be like?
yeah.
Like, I don't have the delusion that things are going to go, $5 a mile again. Everybody's going to get rich, but it doesn't have to. Their trucking companies existed for many years, way before that.
Yeah.
They'll exist for many years long after that. Small companies and big companies alike.
Yeah.
If your trucking business can only exist in that kind of freight market, you've not built a good business.
Yeah.
Maybe you started at the wrong time. If you're starting right now, it's a tough time to start.
Yeah.
Having a new authority right now or being a new carrier, you're starting in a rough market, because not only is it a soft freight market and rates are down, but you're starting in a time of a massive fraud, and you're
Mm,
the new kid on the block, and people aren't going to give you a chance.
mm,
So it's a really tough time to enter right now. But I mean, if somehow
mm,
you enter and you make it, you're strong. You're
mm-hmm.
strong, but you got
Yeah.
a lot to overcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Heck, even as a business that's been around a while, this fraud thing is. I was talking to somebody about it yesterday, and we're going to try to do a show on it about this fraud.
Mm,
And it's just, I mean, I'm getting like at least twice a week somebody trying to scam us, just straight up scamming us, and I'm like, this is just ridiculous.
that is, yeah. I mean, I remember way back in the day, I don't remember 2014, and then before that, I don't remember what it was. And then I was at this conference or this meeting about scam, and how to identify it and what to do, what not to do, and all these different things. And the dollar amount, I can't remember what it was, but I'm sure it was in the billions, whatever. And that was just on freight, how uh, things were being, that how the scam game was operating. And there is, it's unfortunate, man. Technology is amazing, and then how people can take advantage of that. And it's just so, unfortunate. But the thing is, again, it can become a learning process. You know what I mean? I mean, somebody took my credit cards, and they spent everything. They bought all this stuff within an hour. I'm at the gym, and then they broke into my locker, you know. And so I
Yeah,
learned from that situation, right? I learned, and it's not that, have become jaded in any kind of way. I just had to learn, unfortunately. In our industry, hopefully, I don't want anybody to get scammed at all. But I guess my point is that, as you enter into this business and you start to go along in it, just be a sponge and learn from what Adam's saying. Adam's talking about scamming. Well, look that up, learn some stuff about it and how you can protect yourself. I
they're
don't know
getting
all the
so
ways.
elaborate. They're getting so
Yeah.
elaborate. It's
Yeah.
um, if you're just
Hmm.
not questioning everything, they're probably going to get you. I had
Hmm.
somebody last week. Somehow they got into a major brokerage's account and were posting loads on their account, but then putting their contact information in there. Because I looked, I searched the MC number and all this, and it was Covenant Transportation. They got in and they were posting loads on their Covenant's account somehow, some way, but it's just something wasn't right.
Yeah.
So I noticed this guy's email domain was slightly different than what Covenant's
Yeah.
is,
Yep.
and what he was asking us to do
Oh,
just wasn't. So I called Covenant, and then they were involving another brokerage in the scam too. So I called them, and they were very grateful for the call. But I'm like,
yeah.
how do they get into somebody's account? And how do you decipher that? I easily could have missed that.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it's just like everything. It's in everything.
Well, like what you're talking about, you put some checkpoints in play, in terms of like when you're going to work with someone and say, all right, I got to check this, check this, check this, and hopefully, those things will help you to determine the validity of whoever you're working with, right? Or maybe identified or realize, oh, wait a minute, this just doesn't look right, and so as coming into the industry and hearing Adam say this, and then, some kind of way you figure out, you put, these checks into place, that can help you, even if you get scammed, and then, you figure it out how to make it better. Now, with that said, and if it's really a big deal in the industry, and maybe there's a shipper that's been caught up in this before, right? Well, you have checks in place to help prevent that, and it seems that you've been pretty successful with it. That's something that that shipper might value. You see what I mean? So there's always something that can go on that we end up dealing with that we can come up with a solution for. Not that it's going to be 100%, but you did something about it, right? And so your company is that's growth in itself. And so you put this in place. And when you are talking to a shipper, that might be the difference maker in terms of working with them allowing you to work with them. We have these in
Hmm.
place. We've been through this, we understand this, and on and so forth. And they might share their story with you, and you guys start to build some rapport, right? And then that's how that relationship grows. And next thing you know, you've got this client, this long-term client, because of something like that. So,
Yeah.
there's that's how I look at opportunities, or things in terms of opportunities. But yeah, you're right. It's tough.
Yeah. All right. We just hit the 2 hour mark, so I'm gonna
Okay.
go ahead and cut this off. We sure do appreciate it. I think everybody in here appreciates
I
your
appreciate it. Yeah.
conversations and your from everything from your business lessons to information about freight. Next time we'll get you on, we'll talk. Maybe we can talk a little bit about more about freight again and just see kind of what's going on there.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah,
try to do
yeah,
this
absolutely.
a little bit more regular. But everybody,
Yeah.
if you want to know more about Paul and his company, go to fra8connect.com, freightconnect.com. And let's see, here's your number, 866-342-0040, extension 109 would be the office phone number. And anything to talk about or leave people with, or
No, I just hope everybody stay hydrated. It's been hot in some parts of the country. Here we've gotten a lot of rain, man. I don't know why, but in July and August we don't get this much rain. I'm in the middle of the country, and we normally just get hot,
I, I, I
so
bet you it's hot over in Kenya right now. Good thing you're
no,
not
it's
there.
not.
No?
Actually, no, this is their winter.
Oh,
So it's cooler, like 70s, 60s, 70s. So that's winter for them. And then it'll get warmer as the year goes on. So when it gets colder here, they get warmer. So yeah, man. So here it's hot. So yeah, everybody stay hydrated.
all right. Everybody take care, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for stopping in.